We're here at the UK and Ireland Planning Conference, which is being hosted by the Urban Studies and Planning Department at Sheffield University this year. It's an all-day conference bringing together academics and practitioners to talk about planning and the kind of alternative futures we need to make planning more just and sustainable. We're here because, as part of our project on participatory cities, we're hosting a roundtable to try and compare and learn about experiences of participation in planning across Gothenburg, London and Greater Manchester.
We know that there are a lot of techniques being deployed in order to invite citizens and have discussions about how to make planning better. We also know that there's a lot of problems, and we think we need to co-produce more knowledge together with people working with these tough issues in practice, and as researchers engage in trying to promote new ways of thinking and doing democratic planning.
I'm here representing a community network in London called Just Space, and it strikes me, just having sat through this morning's discussions, that it's almost my role to reclaim participation. Firstly, in terms of if you want true participation, where do you start? My argument would be that you start with the existing community organisations that usually exist in a very diverse and rich form, certainly at a city level, if not in every settlement. There is an existing network to connect with. One does not need to start afresh as an institution and contemplate how on earth the institution is going to be able to bring forward participation. I think the third issue for me around true participation is how do you sustain it? I mean, yes, we can look at a particular moment in time where we want to put a lot of effort into increasing engagement there. You get the engagement, but how do you sustain the interest at a community level?
My name is Daniel Andersson. I've been working for the city of Gothenburg on conflicts in public space since 2005. Originally concerning graffiti or vandalism, depends on where you stand on that topic, which is about participation. The idea with working with graffiti was about creating a dialogue with the people we talk about, the people we try to shut out from public space in different ways. So the first year we got calls from journalists wanted to know what we knew, and we said we know nothing. Wait a year and we'll talk to you. Because knowledge is about, for me it's about finding the right questions. Participation is about questions, not finding answers or going out asking people to get the answers we need. And everybody sits on the truth in a sense. Every plan we create, I think, has a history in some sense and some conflicts coming into the plans we're making forward. And the question that we have to ask us is, when we work on equality or make plans for housing and creating a society, who do we build for, who do we plan for? In which way do we determine who are involved and who we are for? And that kind of borders also needs to be talked about, because people are working there all the time, making changes, making possible flows between the outside and the inside.
For the last 2 years, I've been effectively seconded to work with the Greater Manchester Combined Authority on the citywide Greater Manchester Spatial Framework, which is the 10 councils across Greater Manchester working with the Greater Manchester Combined Authority on a joint spatial plan for the conurbation. What I've sort of come to realise is we were proposing massive change. If people are going to understand that change and be able to accept that change or engage with the process, we've got to be really clear, because if they spend what was eventually a 12-week consultation period, if they spend that whole 12 weeks trying to understand what it is we're talking about, and then eventually once they think they've understood it, primarily because somebody else has explained it to them in their own interpretation, they're not going to give us positive feedback. They're going to firstly say, what the hell are you doing consultation-wise? You're not telling us what you should be telling us. Why didn't you tell us sooner? Why didn't you make it easier for us to engage? But then they're also going to be saying, well, we can't possibly support this because they've come to their own conclusions on what it actually means. That almost sort of alienates people from the process who actually can engage in neighbourhood planning. Perhaps the people with the most capacity to engage, the most articulate people, often the most well-to-do people, are they really the people whose local communities need this level of extra planning? Actually, is it not the areas with the greater number of issues where we need that level of intervention, perhaps? Are they able to engage in these sort of processes? Do they have the capacity to have those sort of processes? That's perhaps where organisations such as Richard's come in, because they're able to help bring people together to create that capacity.
I'll just leave you with two thoughts. One is, I think this panel challenges our ideas about what is radical and what is alternative. We invited some of our Swedish guests along here because we were inspired by what we thought participatory planning and democracy might look like, only to hear about the disillusionment of Swedish planners and how much they'd really like strong, directly elected mayors with local neighbourhood plans. I wasn't expecting that. And I think the other thing is really around us thinking as a group of scholars and practitioners, what is the function and consequence of our critique if it involves throwing the idea of participation as the baby out with the bathwater? Rather, how can we actually recognise the difficult contexts in which planners operate across different urban contexts, and then kind of build some coalitions of the willing to make the most of what we do have while continuing to lobby for greater and more effective forms of engagement? So thank you very much to all our panellists and to Vicky and Nazem as co-organisers. Thank you very much.
I found it a very interesting discussion. It's always nice to sort of have some sort of confirmation that there are other people out there, not just nationally but internationally as well, who have sort of similar thoughts but from a very different perspective. As a takeaway thing is, for me, is well, how can we tap into that community resource, the existing organisations, particularly those who aren't already engaged, because they're the people that often stand to gain the most and are least engaged in our discussions.
And I think after we heard about the different experiences of each of the panel members, it was really interesting to reflect on the fact that there were some very differing views on what participation might mean to different people, but also there was a chance for a discussion and a debate between that. And I think also it's important to reflect on the fact that some of the academics were maybe also the academic view was being represented and contested by some of the community members and also by GMCA themselves. I think it was a productive debate, and it sort of got everyone thinking differently about participation, because it's obviously a big issue at the conference in general.